Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about the muscle physiology. Muscle physiology is a topic which is for the muscle and its properties and the functioning and all about the muscle. Okay, right. And this muscle is one of the important organ, so which is works as for the movement and for the flexibility and excitability and for the contractility. And here this muscle takes about 60 to 70% of the total body weight, and this muscle is divided into three types. There are three types of the muscles out there. So one is depends upon the striations, and second one is depends upon the movement, that is nothing but control, and depends upon the situation. And first come to the depends upon the striations. Depending upon the striations, the muscles are in two types. One is striated muscle and next one is non-striated muscle. So come to the striated muscle. Striated muscle is a muscle, so in the structure of the muscle there is striations are present, that in the sense lines are either longitudinal or the transverse lines are present. Such type of the muscle is called as a striated muscle, and the best example for this striated muscle is one is skeletal muscle and another one is cardiac muscle. Okay, right. Next one is non-striated muscle. Non-striated muscle is a muscle, there is in the structure of this muscle there is no striations are present, nothing but absence of the striations. These striations are absent in this type of the muscle, so that it is called as non-striated muscle. The best example for this muscle is the smooth muscle. Okay, right. And next come to the next type of classification, that is depending upon the control. Depending upon the control or the movement, there are two types of the muscles are there. One is voluntary muscle and next one is involuntary muscle. First come to the voluntary muscle. The muscle which we can control is called as voluntary muscle. This type of muscle, that in the sense voluntary type of muscle we can control, that in the sense the muscle is in under the hand of or is in under control of the brain and the CNS. Okay, right. And such type of the muscle is called as voluntary. We can move our hands. This is type of the voluntary movement. We can move our neck. This is the type of voluntary movement. Okay, so we can move our lower limbs. We can walk and we can talk and everything. All these are because of this voluntary muscle. If we want to stop this, we can. But whereas come to the involuntary muscle, we cannot stop this type of the muscle. Like, can we stop heart? It is not possible. So, the involuntary muscle is nothing but the muscle which we cannot control. That in the sense, this is not in under control of the brain and the CNS. This is in under control of the ANS, autonomic nervous system, by the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The example for this is cardiac muscle and the smooth muscle. Heart, we cannot stop, that is for the cardiac muscle. And next, stomach, lungs, intestine, all these are comes under the smooth muscle. And next one is depending upon the another type of classification, depending upon the situation. Depending upon the situation, the muscles are divided into three types. One is skeletal muscle and next one is cardiac muscle and third one is smooth muscle. First come to the skeletal muscle. A muscle which is along with the skeleton is called as the skeletal muscle. That in the sense all over the body skeleton is present, along with that skeleton the muscle is present, that is called as the skeletal muscle. Okay, right. And next one is cardiac muscle, a muscle which is specialized for the heart and its functions, that is called as cardiac muscle. And another one is smooth muscle. Smooth muscle is a muscle which is present with the organs like viscera, stomach, intestine, lungs, liver, pancreas, spleen, and all these are comes under the smooth muscle. Okay, so these are the three types of the muscles are present. Right. And next come to the structure of the skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle, not only the skeletal muscle, myofibril is the structural and the functional unit of the muscle mass. Okay, this skeletal muscle is divides, that in the sense the major is muscle mass and next one is muscle fiber and next one is myofibril. Okay, so that in the sense muscle mass is the major. In the muscle mass there is presence of the muscle fiber. In the muscle fiber there is a presence of the myofibril. Okay, right, come to see this diagram once. Okay, that is the first one is the skeletal muscle, and in the skeletal muscle there is somewhat comes outside, that is what the muscle fascicule, that is nothing but the muscle. And next this muscle fascicule, in that muscle, in the second diagram it shows the muscle fascicule, and that muscle fascicule divides into, that in the sense there is presence of the so many myofibrils are in that muscle fiber. Okay, right, first is muscle fiber and next one is muscle fascicule and next is myofibril. That is what the position and the situation. This muscle is covered by the three types of the layers. One is endomysium, epimysium and the perimysium. Okay, right, and come to the in order. So first inner to outer endomysium, and in between that perimysium, and the outermost is epimysium. Okay, right, and next come to the structure of the sarcomere. Sarcomere is nothing but it is a structural unit. That's what myofibril it is. Okay, so this sarcomere is restricted in between the two Z lines. Okay, two Z lines, and in the middle of this there is a H zone, and there is two types of the proteins are present. One is actin filaments and another one is myosin filaments. These two types of, with help of these two types of the movements, there is a contraction occurs and the relaxation occurs. When there is a contraction, at that time the actin filaments stretch the myosin filaments, and immediately the myosin filament gets stretched and the actin filaments comes into the normal position, and after that the myosin filaments comes into the regular position. That is what the sarcomere. And next one is come to the composition of the skeletal muscle. If you see the composition of the skeletal muscle, there is water and the solids are present. Water is about 75% and the solids is about 25%. In this, water is water, nothing else. That is about 75% we have, and the solids are divided into two types. One is organic substances and another one is inorganic substances. Come to the inorganic substances, we have potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, chlorides, phosphates and the sulfates. Okay, right, these are the inorganic substances. And next come to the organic substances. Organic substances are again divided into proteins and the other organic substances. One more important thing, in case of the important inorganic substances, the potassium is the principal element for the muscle mass. Because of the potassium levels only, the muscle can move. Okay, right. And come to this protein part of the organic substances. There are myosin, actin. These two are the important factors of the proteins which are present and which can move easily. So these two are the very important proteins here. And along with these two proteins, we have tropomyosin, troponin, actinin, desmin, nebulin, titin and the myoglobin is present. And next one is other organic substances. If you see the other organic substances, we have carbohydrates, lipids and the nitrogenous substances. Next, come to the properties of the skeletal muscle. If you see the properties, that in the sense, what are the properties actually? Properties is nothing but the muscle, how can it function? That is called as the properties. Here we have three types of the properties. One is excitability, next one is contractility and another one is muscle tone. Three types of the properties we have. In these three types of the properties, the first one is excitability. What is excitability? Excitability is nothing but the disturbance in the environment by the stimulus. When we'll apply the stimulus, then immediately there is a disturbance in that muscle mass. that in the sense stimulus carried out by the nerve fiber and that reach to the muscle fiber, and then there is a disturbance in the muscle fiber. Okay, right. This excitability is because of the stimulus. What is stimulus? Irritation. Okay, stimulus is nothing but irritation in the environment is called as, that in the sense we are making irritating. Okay, so that particular muscle fiber or the nerve fiber and whatever it is there, that is called as the stimulus. This stimulus is in four types we have. One is electrical stimulus, and next one is thermal stimulus, and next one is mechanical stimulus, and next is humoral stimulus. First come to the electrical stimulus. Electrical stimulus in the sense by the giving shock. Okay, so shock in the sense not that much. Okay, so with very low voltage. Okay, so that is what the electrical stimulus. And next one is thermal stimulus, that in the sense either by the cold or by the hot. Okay, so that is what the thermal stimulus. And next one is mechanical stimulus, like ions, by the different types of the ions and the acids and alkalines. All these are comes under the mechanical stimulus. And next one is humoral stimulus. Humoral stimulus in the sense hormones, by the hormones. Stimulus by the hormones is called as humoral stimulus. Next, another type of the property is contractility. What is this contractility? Contractility is nothing but after the stimulus there is excitability. By this excitability, the muscle give response. That response is called as contractility. First is stimulus. We are applying the stimulus, that is in four types we have. Okay, right, like electrical, thermal, mechanical, and the humoral type of the stimulus. By the applying of any type of this stimulus, will get there is disturbance in that particular environment, that is called as excitability. And after this excitability, there is contractility of the muscle. The important property of this muscle is the contractility. By the contraction of the muscle, there is a movement occurs. The movement is mainly depends upon the stimulus type and at the same time the frequency of the stimulus and the strength of the stimulus. Normally, the quantity, exact quantity of the stimulus and the whatever is the normal required, that is called as threshold level of stimulus. That in the sense the muscle should be give contraction in the sense that needs, that requires a strength, and another one is type, and another one is frequency. These three factors are influences the contractility. Okay, right. That if these three are improper, that is called as threshold level of the stimulus. By this threshold level of the stimulus, we'll get the record like this, and that curve is called as simple muscle curve. So when we are applying the normal level of the stimulus, and then we'll get the contraction like this. The response is called as simple muscle twitch. If we take the record of this, that is called as simple muscle curve. In this, there are parts like PS in the sense point of stimulus where we are applying the stimulus. Okay, right. After that, there is PC. PC in the sense point of contraction. In between this PS and PC, point of stimulus to point of contraction, there is LP. LP in the sense latent period. Latent period is nothing but the period which takes for the excitability. There is movement of the ions, that is in between the point of stimulus to point of contraction. And after this PC too, there is a highest level of the line, that is called as PMC, that in the sense point of maximum contraction it is. Okay, the PC, point of contraction to point of maximum contraction, that period in between these two, point of contraction to point of maximum contraction, it is called as contraction period, CP it is. Okay, right. And next one, the PMC, point of maximum contraction to PMR, point of maximum relaxation. That in between this period, that in the sense point of maximum contraction to point of maximum relaxation, that period is called as RP, that in the sense relaxation period it is. Okay, and after that there is physiological curve will get. Okay, that is what the normal stimulus, and where we are getting the, so with the help of the normal stimulus we'll get the record like this. This record is called as simple muscle curve. And after this if we are applying so more than one stimulus in the frequency of the time is, so it will change, that in the sense continuously we are applying the same type of the stimulus, that in the sense strength is the same, and we are applying with the equal time gap, and then we'll get the record like this. This is called as fatigue. Okay, right. Next one is another property in this contractility is fatigue. Fatigue is nothing but decreased muscle activity due to the repeated continuous stimulus. See, if you see that graph, okay, the first one is the graph plotted on that one is the basic one, that is called as simple muscle curve, as we know. Okay, and second one is somewhat beneficial effect, and third one is it shows more beneficial effect, and after that there is decreasing in the activity. So that here what will come to know in the sense that due to the continuous and the repeated stimulus there is decreasing of the muscle contraction. See, into the last contraction, that in the sense it comes to the baseline. Okay, and after this if we give some time, that in the sense 5 to 10 minutes, and it will take nutrient substances and it takes oxygen and the gases and everything, and it comes to reverse back, that in the sense again it will work, the muscle can work again after the fatigue phenomenon, again the muscle is works. This type of phenomenon is called as reversible phenomenon. It is, fatigue is a reversible phenomenon, that in the sense due to the continuous repeated stimulus there is fatigue occurs, and after this fatigue there is, if we give some time, then it will recover from the fatigue and will get the normal action again of that particular muscle fiber. Okay, right. And come to the another property of the muscle fiber, that is tetanus. Tetanus is nothing but due to the repeated rapid stimulus, the muscle is sustained in the contraction. The muscle is sustained in the contraction due to the repeated rapid stimulus. And if you see the first one, that is if we are applying per second 5 stimulus, that is whatever it is type. Okay, if you are applying 5 stimulus per second, then the recording is like this, that in the sense normal recording it is. And after that if you are applying 10 stimulus per second, somewhat difference, that in the sense there is no physiological curve will get for the 10 stimulus per second. And if you are applying 20 stimulus per second, okay, so then we'll get staircase type, that in the sense like steps, the contraction goes on up and the relaxation gets less. When we stop the stimulus, then it comes to the relaxation, that in the sense it comes to the baseline. This phenomenon is called as staircase phenomenon or the trapeze it is. And if you are applying 30 stimulus per second, then it is called as, it is also like staircase phenomenon, it is complete trapeze. Okay, and next one is 35 stimulus. If you are applying 35 stimulus per second, then we'll get clonus, that in the sense it's almost like tetanus, but it is not tetanus. Okay, right, that in the sense clonus is an incomplete tetanus when we are applying 35 stimulus per second it is. And next one is if you are applying 40 stimulus per second, then we'll get complete tetanus, that in the sense there is no relaxation again, that in the sense the muscle will get contracted and sustained in that contraction. It is irreversible phenomenon it is, that in the sense the muscle won't get recovered here. Whereas come to the fatigue, it is get recovered, and in case of this tetanus, the muscle is won't recover. That type of phenomenon is called as irreversible phenomenon it is. Okay, and next thing is, and next property is muscle tone. What is muscle tone? Muscle tone is nothing but the strength and the contractility and the excitability, all are comes under this muscle tone. There is this muscle tone is with the two types of the tonicities. One is hypertonia and another one is hypotonia. Hypotonia in the sense when we are applying the normal stimulus, then also the muscle won't react properly. Such type of the tone, muscle tone is called as hypotonia, and when we are applying the normal stimulus, it gives response more and more. That type of tonicity or the muscle tone is called as hypertonia it is. And next one is when we are applying the stimulus, so we have latent period in between the point of stimulus to point of contraction, isn't it? Okay, right. In between this point of stimulus to point of contraction, we have latent period. In this latent period, there is the movement of the ions like sodium, potassium, and calciums. Opening of these channels. By that only, we'll get the reaction that's for the as a contraction and the relaxation. Okay, right. Here, the contraction and the relaxation, in all this process, there is evoking of the potentials. When muscle is in the normal condition, that in the sense without any type of the stimulus, it is called as resting membrane potential it is. And when we are applying the stimulus, there is evoking, that in the sense releasing of the potentials, that potential is called as action potential. And if you see the first one, that is it in between the minus 100 to minus 80 in between, that is actually the resting membrane potential is about minus 90 millivolts. When the muscle is in the normal position, then that is minus 90 millivolts, and at that time to the first line part, that is called as, so there we are applying the stimulus. At the end of the first line, we are applying the stimulus, and immediately the curve is like small movement is there. That is what the excitability, that is there is the movement of the ions like sodium, potassium, and the calciums. There is releasing of the neurotransmitters, and because of all this, the second part, that in the sense second line to third line in between, okay, so that is called as, so there is in between this, first one is evoking of the action potential, and second one is woken action potential, and third point, that in the sense that the gray color part is nothing but the firing level. There is shooting of the, that in the sense the contraction is get started, that level is called as firing level it is. At the point of 0 till that there is a firing level, and by the according to the our stimulus, if the strength is more and it goes more than that 0 level, okay, so that is called as overshoot it is. Overshoot is nothing but it goes than the normal than the 0, okay, right. It is about plus 50 millivolts it is. Action potential is about plus 50 millivolts, and the resting membrane potential is about minus 90 millivolts it is. Okay, and next the level of where we got the point of maximum contraction, that level is called as spike potential it is. The maximum potential is present in the action potential is in the spike potential, that is about plus 50 millivolts it is. Okay, right. And next is after this immediately there is depolarization occurs, that in the sense relaxation occurs, that is what we call as depolarization part of the action potential. And after completion of this depolarization, that in the sense that muscle completely comes to the normal position, that in the sense again resting membrane potential, then there is hyperpolarization occurs. That in the sense it won't go till the 0 or the overshoot or the spike potential levels. Just it moves, that in the sense how much it requires for the resting membrane potential levels, it takes that much of the part, that is called as hyperpotential levels. And after completion of this action potential, so when we are applying the stimulus, then there is evoking of the action potential, and immediately there is excitability, and after that contractility. Contractility or the contraction is the final one in the muscle. That is what the muscle contraction it is. In this relation between this excitation, after the stimulus there is excitation, and after the excitation there is contraction. The relation between this excitability and the contractility is called as excitation contraction coupling it is, ECC, excitation, contraction, coupling. If you see the events in this excitation, contraction, coupling, so the first one is, there is when we are applying the stimulus, there is excitation of the muscle fiber by the impulses passing through the motor nerve by the neuromuscular junction. Through the neuromuscular junction, the junction between the nerve and the muscle is called as the neuromuscular junction. When we are applying the stimulus, immediately there is excitability in the muscle fiber after the passing impulses through the nerve fiber into the muscle fiber. And after that, there is generation of the action potential, and then in the muscle fiber. So generation of the action potential in the muscle fiber, and then it continues with the spreading. So a generation of that action potential, and it spread all over the muscle fiber via the T tubules. And next, after that, entrance of that action potential into the cisterna of the muscle fiber. First is excitation by the stimulus, and next one is generation of the action potential, and next is spreading of that action potential all over the muscle fiber, and next one is entrance of that action potential into the cisterna, and next one is releasing of the calcium channels by the opening of the calcium gates into the cisterna. And next one is, there is movement of the calcium ions. So after the opening of the calcium channels, these are released into the cisterna, and then there is a movement of the calcium channels towards the actin filaments. And immediately these actin filaments stretch the myosin filaments, and then there is contraction occurs. That is what the contraction of the muscle fiber. This is what the relation between the excitability to contractility. Okay, right. First one is excitation in the muscle, and next one is generation of the action potential, and next one is spreading of the action potential, and next entrance of the action potential into the cisterna, and then opening of the calcium channels, and the gates are opened of the calcium channels, and then movement of the calcium towards the cisterna, and then actin filaments movement, and after that actin filaments gives movement of the myosin filaments, and then there is contraction occurs. This is what the relation of the excitation, contraction, coupling. Okay, and next one is neuromuscular junction. What is this neuromuscular junction? The junction between the nerve fiber and the end of the nerve fiber and the muscle fiber, where that nerve fiber is entering into the muscle fiber, is called as neuromuscular junction. Junction between the nerve fiber and the muscle fiber. If you see, this is a muscle, and this is what the nerve fiber it is, and this muscle fiber is binds with the nerve fiber like this. Okay, and if we are applying the stimulus here, the impulses passes through this, and that entering into this muscle fiber, and then there is a contraction occurs by the excitation. Okay, this neuromuscular junction is in two types. One is chemical type and another one is electrical type. If you see the parts of this neuromuscular junction, presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane and the synaptic cleft. If you see the presynaptic membrane, that is nothing but the nerve fiber. It is pre to the junction. Okay, that is called as presynaptic membrane. Synaptic cleft, in the sense that gap between the presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane. Postsynaptic membrane is nothing but the muscle fiber. Okay, right. In between this we have synaptic cleft. Okay, right. Presynaptic membrane, synaptic cleft, and next is the postsynaptic membrane. In case of the chemical type it is. In case of the electrical type, we have gap junction. There is a bridge barrier in between the presynaptic membrane and the postsynaptic membrane. That is what the neuromuscular junction. If you see the movement or the events in the neuromuscular junction, at first in the motor nerve, after there is a sensation, that is through the somatic nerve fibers, it reaches to the brain, and then there is a, through the motor nerve fibers, there is evoking of the action potential. Okay, right, this action potential, by the movement of this action potential, there is opening of the voltage gated calcium channels as we learned just before. Okay, right, and next one is this entering of the calcium channels into the ECF cisterna. Okay, right, and after that the opening of the vessels and the releasing of the acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter it is. Okay, right, and first one is action potential in the motor nerve fiber, and next one in the axon terminal of the nerve fiber we have opening of the voltage gated channels and the movement of that impulse, and next one is entry of the calcium channels into the ECF, and after that opening of the vessels and the releasing of the acetylcholine. Okay, and next is in the synaptic cleft in between the presynaptic membrane. Till this presynaptic membrane, that's what the nerve fiber it is, and next one is in between that junction, that is called as synaptic cleft. Okay, right, here the synaptic cleft, the passage of the acetylcholine through the synaptic cleft or the gap junctions. Okay, right, in case of electrical type gap junction, through that barrier it passes the passage of the electron movement, and in case of the chemical type the acetylcholine released and the passage of that acetylcholine through the synaptic cleft. And next one is in the postsynaptic membrane. What happens in the sense and binding of that acetylcholine with the receptors, formation of the acetylcholine receptor complex it is. Okay, so whatever is coming through the synaptic cleft from the presynaptic membrane, that is what acetylcholine, that comes into the postsynaptic membrane through the synaptic cleft, and it binds with the receptors and it makes a complex that is called as acetylcholine receptor complex. And after this, opening of the ligand gated sodium channels, and opening of this ligand gated sodium channels, immediately there is opening of that channel and sodium will comes outside, that in the sense into the ECF, extracellular fluid. Okay, right, and here next one is development of the end plate potential. Finally there is development of the end plate potential, how much it requires for the contractility, that is what we call as end plate potential. Okay, right, and next one is in the muscle fiber. After the postsynaptic membrane, in the muscle fiber, the generation of the action potential here again. Okay, and next one is excitation contraction coupling. So all the events in the excitation contraction coupling, and next one is then there is a muscle contraction occurs. This is what the neuromuscular junction events. Now to muscle, how it reaches, how the impulses passed, and how it works, and types of that neuromuscular junction, and how the muscle get contracted. In all this, we have motor nerve fiber, axon terminal, synaptic cleft, postsynaptic membrane, and the muscle fiber. All the events occurs in these parts. Okay, and next one is Myasthenia gravis, one of the applied aspect in the muscle, that is what Myasthenia gravis. Myasthenia gravis is a autoimmune disorder where the antibodies, each type of the antibodies works as the antigens of the body and which are work as a against to the body, that is called as autoimmune disorder, that is Myasthenia gravis. The tone is decreased, muscle tone is decreased. And next one is the smooth muscle. Another type of muscle is smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle, we learn about that cardiac muscle in the cardiovascular system and properties and everything, action potential, generation, resting membrane potential, and everything about the cardiac muscle we learn in the CVS. And come to the smooth muscle, the distribution of the smooth muscle if you see, okay, so all the systems, all the organs, all the viscera, that is what the smooth muscle distribution. And the examples are like liver, stomach, intestine, lungs, spleen, pancreas. Okay, right. And after this, if you see the functions of this, CVS. So what is the function? So arteries, vessels, smooth muscle. Okay, and next one is respiratory system, lungs. Okay, and next digestive system, stomach, pancreas, intestine. And next reproductive system, external genitalia and internal organs. All these are the smooth muscles, and these functions as well as their functions are included with the respective systems. Okay, and next one is EMG, electromyography. EMG. Okay, right. This electromyography, by this we can record the muscle tone and the muscle activity and how much it taking the strength and how much it works and the stimulus, how it responds to that particular stimulus. All this will come to know by this EMG, electromyograph. Okay, this is mainly for the muscle tone. Okay, so according to this, the majorly there are two types of the diseases. One is hypertonia and another one is hypotonia. Hypertonia is nothing but the tone, muscle tone is increased and the muscle tone is decreased, that is hypotonia. Okay, so this is what about the complete muscle as per my knowledge. Okay, thank you very much.